Hi everyone, it's James here from Pro Tools Expert. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I showed you the unboxing video of the new iD14, the baby interface from our friends at Audient. So it's review time for the iD14 now. So what we're going to do is record some acoustic guitar, put a couple of mics on it, put the DI straight out of the guitar into the iD14. We'll then juice it up a little bit with some bass using the DI input on the iD14, and then we'll max it out a little bit with some microphones via its ADAT optical input via the ASP008, which I have down here in the rack. So let's get on, I'll show you what we've set up and let's do some recording. So here we are looking down at the front of the iD14, and my first two channels are connected. Channel 1 is an XLR off to a Sontronics Orpheus condenser microphone. Channel 2 actually runs off to the Boulder Creek guitar directly rather than via a DI box. This particular guitar has an XLR balanced output on it already, which is really handy for recording. The phantom power is switched on for the Orpheus and not for the acoustic DI. I've then got two outputs, which actually in this case run off to my other Pro Tools system, so you can hear what we're talking about. It would obviously normally run off to your speakers. Other connections that I haven't made yet are the optical in. This will come from my ASP008, my USB connection off to my Mac, and the power supply. Now, the cool thing about the iD14 is you don't actually need to connect a power supply. The only time you need it is when you're running mics that use phantom power, and obviously in this case I am. But if I was recording using two dynamics or something like that, or even two acoustic guitars with DIs or whatever, then I wouldn't need to connect the power supply, which is really, really handy. So I've set my gains, I've set the phantom power on for the Orpheus. Now let's go and have a look in the iD14's control panel, ID Control. So you can see here so far, I have set the two mic inputs up and I'm getting good level. Which sounds pretty good. And you can also see that I'm actually not monitoring using the ID control panel at all. My DAW setting is turned right up, and I'm actually monitoring through Pro Tools, effectively monitoring from tape. Now I can monitor the input source if I want by muting these two in Pro Tools and going back. Now if I turn these up, I'm now monitoring at source, if you like, the old-fashioned way, monitoring from the desk. Other controls I've got in here, I've got two different DAW returns, which is really, really nice. So I can have up to 4 lines, 4 sends if you like, coming from my DAW, from Pro Tools. In the main kind of master section, I can turn on and off what I see. I'm not using the opticals at the moment, but I can turn those on. And my 8 ADAT opticals appear. And if I want to, I can turn my DAW mixers off. So I can just see what's going into the unit. See my settings here for my master fader. If I hit the system button, opens up this rather natty little area here, so I can change from either ADAT optical to SP diff input. Change my different clock sources. We'll come on to that later when we come to talk about setting this thing up alongside an ASP008 or other ADAT optical interface. I can assign where my talkback comes from, my mono mode, main outputs, whether I'm using the main DAW outputs, my Q inputs, or the DAW through. And obviously I can save and load these as well, which is really, really handy. Let's just bury that. So at the moment, what I'm actually going to do, because I want to hear from Pro Tools, so I'm perfectly in time with the click, is we'll turn those two down. Let's just see what we are set up at, level engine wise. 128, let's take that down to 32. Because we can. Now for all these extra control panels and devices and interfaces, there is something to be said for if you can get your latency nice and low, you really don't need to worry about them. And in this case, I think I'm going to try and get away with using as low a buffer setting as possible to get rid of any latency issues or the need to have to use the control panel. Obviously, when I come to set up more complicated routings and alternative headphone sends, things like that, yes, it's very, very handy. But at the moment, I'm going to stick with the way it is. So I've got myself a click track set up. Let's just whack in a few bars of acoustic guitar. 1, 2, 3. Cool, okay, fairly happy with that. There's a few little finger pops and things, but it keeps the reality and it makes it feel a bit more real. So let's work out what we're going to put down next. Let's put some bass guitar down. So I'm now going to plug my bass guitar into the DI input on the iD14, channel 1, and let's turn it up and make sure we're getting some signal. Yeah, fairly happy with that. 2, 3. Do you know what? In the headphones, and I'm sure it'll translate onto speakers, I really like the sound of the i. It sounds very, very natural. Great bass sound just from plugging in a fairly average bass guitar. Really liking that a lot. So let's add some shaky stuff, some percussion-y things. So let's use the Orpheus for that. So shaky stuff, I've got my Minor, I think this is a studio, live shaker, I lie. We like that a lot. Even though I'm left-handed, I play these sort of things right-handed for some bizarre reason. So, Orpheus again, let's put some shaker on it. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the mic pre's in the Audient iD14 seem to respond pretty well to transient sounds. So let's now let's up the ante, let's up the game a little bit. Let's put some real drums on it. Minimum number of mics, we're not going to go too over the top on it, but we'll use the ASP008, which I always use for my drum recordings, and we'll use that as the kind of the front end mic pre, and we'll whack that into the ADAT optical on the iD14, giving us 10 glorious mic pre's. So let's see how we get on with that. So you can now see on the back of the iD14, I've plugged in a Toslink cable into the ADAT optical port, and that runs off down to my ASP008, which is running 5 channels of drums, kick, snare, hat, and left and right overheads. It's not going to be a complicated drum part, especially for me, but we'll keep it simple, make it sound quite sweet, I think. So let's get on track some drums. 1, 2, 3. So time for some vocals to finish off our little track. You're going to get me belting it down into the Orpheus. It's running straight into the preamps on the iD14. Let's see how we get on. One, 2, 3. It wouldn't be right if I wrote you a letter. So I sat down and wrote you a song. I wish I could deliver you something better. Ooh, it's been so long. So there you have it, the iD14 from Audient. What do I like? Well, I like the fact that it's really, really simple. Simple, however, in this case doesn't mean low quality or not feature packed. This thing sounds amazing. It's got the same mic pre's as I'm used to in my ASP008. Maybe that's why I like it so much. But it sounds great. Within moments of plugging in, installing the driver, or downloading and installing the driver, we were up and running, making music, recording stuff, and that's what it's about. Get one of these. Sonically, they are way beyond their price point, way beyond their portability. I think these things sound absolutely amazing. I'm going to rattle on more about that, I'm sure, over the coming weeks. We're actually about to do an entire series of recording techniques using just Audient gear, the iD14, the ASP008, and when it hits the Jivey shelves, the new ASP800 mic pre. I'm very much looking forward to using that. But for now, I've been James, that's been the iD14 from Audient, and I'm going to leave you with the track we put together. A little bit of mixing, a little bit of reverb, no EQ or compression. You're going to get the sounds that the microphone's recorded naturally off the instruments straight into the box. See you again soon for some more gear talk. 1, 2, 3. It wouldn't be right if I wrote you a letter, so I sat down and wrote you a song. I wish I could deliver you something better. Ooh, it's been so long. Being with you's like being in the sunshine, but now all I see are dark clouds and rain. I treasure the time that we were together. Ooh, I feel so much pain.